and welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels. On my last Glow Live, I said I was going to do an Auntie video, and this is it, talking about how some seniors need to stop being so darn picky and get real if they're going to survive. But come on, and I'll tell you what an Auntie video is, and then I'll go on and share the topic for today's video. So come on as I go get a cup of cheap but good senior coffee in McDonald's. It was a little too noisy in McDonald's, so I came back out to my minivan to shoot this video. I think the best way to describe what an Auntie video is to tell you what an Auntie is. So let me explain it in this way. There's a grocery store that I frequent on a regular basis, and there's a gentleman who works there who's from the Philippines, and he collects the carts in the parking lot and other assorted duties. Well, every time he sees me, he comes up to me and he says, "Hello, Auntie. How are you, Auntie? I hope you're having a good day, Auntie." And that is culturally a way of him acknowledging me as a senior and paying deference to me as a senior who I guess, is supposed to have a little bit of wisdom. Well, in my community also that I'm from, we had aunties who were not related to you, so it wasn't the traditional auntie. It was someone in the community who you would call an auntie because she was older, and they cared about you and were concerned about your well-being and would look out for you. And if they saw you doing something that they thought was harmful, they'd pull you aside and give you a little word of wisdom. So I'm going to call this an Auntie video, even though I know I may be younger than some of the seniors watching. Now, I know there are probably going to be some people who are going to get a bit upset and put some angry comments on this video. But you know what? Sometimes the truth hurts, but it still needs to be told. Some seniors are just too picky for their own good. And they are also stuck in their ways and unwilling to consider options that are necessary for their financial future and security. And I'm going to share with you an experience I had with one of those individuals recently. I met with a woman recently who was on the verge of losing her apartment. She's a senior in her mid to late 60s, and she has only a small car, but her rent is going up and she's not going to be able to afford it. It's going up a considerable amount, and she simply doesn't have the resources to pay the raise in rent. So as we were talking, I asked her, "Have you considered taking on a roommate?" And she looked at me in horror, like she was aghast at such a suggestion. And she said to me, "I could never share my apartment with someone else. The idea of having someone touching or bothering my things, and I like my privacy too much, and oh no, I could never consider that." And I thought to myself, what the H-E-double-L? Now, I didn't say that to her, but I'm thinking, you and your things may very shortly be out on the streets. Now, mind you, based on what she's told me, she doesn't have savings or not any significant amount, and she also doesn't have any friends or relatives who are willing to take her in. So literally, she's going to be on the streets. So I also suggested, I said, well, how about this? You don't want a roommate in your apartment, but maybe to cut down cost, maybe just renting a room where you have all of your things in one room so no one will be bothering them. You could maybe have a lock on your door or something. And she just looked like I had grown horns or something. She was like, "Oh no." And I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And her response was, "You know what? It's going to work out. It's going to work out." And I thought, this is a level of denial that is just almost beyond description. So in a last attempt to offer a suggestion, I'm feeling a little more frantic than she is. And I'm thinking something's wrong with this picture. But anyhow, I asked her, well, have you considered maybe getting a job? Because she appears to be in good health from what I could see. And I kid you not, she said to me, well, I'm just not used to working for someone else. I've always been my own boss. And again, I'm thinking to myself, well, you're going to boss yourself right onto the streets. But I was really stunned. Maybe I shouldn't have been, because I've heard a lot of people say similar things who are in bad situations. But have you encountered anyone like this who's in such denial? Let me know in the comments. But I'm thinking to myself, what is she thinking? That some fairy godmother is going to pop out of the sky and save her? And to be honest, I really was thinking before we had this conversation that maybe, I could do something to help her financially a little bit. And afterwards I thought, you know what? This is like throwing good after bad. I guess, and maybe this is wrong. Let me know what you think, if you think I was wrong for thinking like this. But I've always felt that you help people who try to help themselves. Now, I'm not talking about someone who is disabled, who is infirmed and really are mentally ill and really just can't do better for themselves. But I'm talking about someone who has the capacity to make good decisions and chooses not to, and as a result ends up in a very bad situation. So I thought, you know what? I don't think this is someone who I'm willing to lend financial assistance to. I'd rather give it to someone who's going to put it to good use and really try and come up with a good outcome. What do you think? Do you think I was wrong? Let me know again in the comments. This is my take on things. Sometimes you have to live like you don't want to temporarily in the present to live like you do want to in the future. I remember when I first got divorced and I was very concerned about my finances because my whole financial picture changed. And I worked 2 jobs for 5 years. And I worked a job on the weekends, and I worked, I think it was 16 hours, 8 hours a day, or 8.5 hours a day, every Saturday and Sunday. Occasionally I would take, a weekend off. But for the most part, I was working 7 days a week with sometimes a break in between. I take, some vacation days on my other job, but I did that then because I had a plan so that I wouldn't have to do it for the rest of my life, or I wouldn't be in dire circumstances as I got older. And I just encounter a lot of people who are unwilling to exist outside of their comfort zone voluntarily until they're forced to do so, and then they're in a much worse situation. The purpose of this video isn't simply to share the story about this woman's stubbornness, but also to encourage seniors out there and others, if you're in a tight spot, consider options, viable options, even options that may require you to be outside of your comfort zone for a while, but don't be so inflexible that you crash and burn because of it. I truly believe that co-shared housing is going to be the answer in the future for seniors, especially seniors living on low incomes or with very small Social Security checks. I did a video not that long ago of a woman named Lizzie who has been living for 9 years with a very good friend, and they share all the expenses. It has allowed her to live such a better life than she would if she had to pay for everything on her own. If I can figure out how to do it, I'll drop the link to that video in the description for this video. But I strongly, strongly urge you, whether it's getting a roommate, whether it's living in a situation where you have multiple roommates, whether it's living in a situation where I like the idea of kind of like a boarding house where you would all get together or have the options to get together for maybe breakfast or for maybe dinner, or for living in a large situation where you go in on a large piece of property and everyone has their own little plot that they can have their own garden, or you can have a community garden. but I just think that thinking outside of the box is going to be really perhaps the only way that seniors are going to be able to survive in the future. But let me know what you think, and if you have other options that you think are going to be the wave of the future, or if you're doing something along these lines right now. But wishing you all the best. Love you, and may your journeys be filled with joy and blessings. And I have 3 videos coming up that I'm going to share with you on 3 individuals who are living full-time for the winter season. That's about 7 months in Quartzsite. How they have set up their kitchens, their living space, and they're living on less than $26 a month rent. And they have a whole compound that they've set up, and it works for them. Each of them, it's a little bit different, but this is an option, and I'm going to share it with you in 3 different videos, 3 different stories of 3 seniors who have found this to be an option that works for them. All right, I'll see you all down the road. Take care.